eat with you, so you can always have a friend nearby and enjoy your time.
Oh, that's so cute. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another deep dive into Kirby lore. This time around, it looks like we'll be checking out some more lore about the Waddle Dees, who, at first glance, before I knew anything about the Kirby lore, I thought they were basically the Goomba adjacent. But, you know, for Kirby. However, after watching Designing for his video on King Dedede, they were a pretty integral part in his character development, as well as being an important part of the series as a whole. But of course, anybody who didn't know anything about them wouldn't even expect that. I mean, this isn't even going into Bandana D being there in the background of the bleachers cheering on King Dedede as he's fighting this godlike entity. It's truly a life goal to find somebody who is that loyal and devoted to you. One that I don't think most of us will ever achieve, unfortunately. Because, hot diggity dog. From what I've seen, these little guys don't seem to be the smartest, but they certainly have strengths that I don't think any normal person can really emulate. But of course, before we get into the video, please make sure to go and support Designing For. The link to the original video is always at the very top of the description. If you've never watched this video before, I highly recommend going to watch the OG first, because I will be pausing to commentate. And it's not going to be the best first viewing experience. So with all that out of the way, let's get right to it.
Waddle Dees.
Do they actually say that? It's like a Pokemon or something?
Waddle Dee is good. That basically sums up every reason you'd have to like the little guys. They're just sweet, intensely marketable little round boys who wouldn't hurt nobody unless you asked them to and gave them a little treat. The cute design and wide-eyed expression gives you all you need to know, and you can love them just based off of that.
I mean, they kind of look very similar to Kirby, don't they? Granted, you could say that it's like an art style choice because a lot of characters are very round. But I think in many ways, they somewhat embody several aspects of Kirby, just not to that level of pureness or to that like extent. Not because they're not as good as Kirby, but because they're not literal gods that can vanquish eldritch beings, you know? They're just Waddle Dees, trying to do their best at whatever they're trying to do.
But this is the Kirby series. It's taught its fans to get heart palpitations whenever they see a butterfly.
The butterfly,
so,
yeah.
Waddle Dees.
Dude, in that first video when we learned about the lore, I was baffled. Of course it's the butterfly. Always has been.
More than meets the eye there too. But the denizens of Dreamland don't have any world-shattering secrets or huge character arcs. They're far too docile for that. Waddle Dees are a lot more subtle creatures, reflecting the place the Kirby series is in, and doing all they can to help the series' themes and vibes shine with their presence. And whether as an entire species or one incredibly loyal ally, their devotion isn't just second to none. It's the moment-to-moment magic that keeps Kirby so fun, charming, and lovable.
So essentially, you could say that they're an integral part of the world building, and they would be there to help emphasize the message that Kirby wants to send, is basically what we're getting at here, right? While I haven't played any of the Kirby games, I feel like most people would likely agree with me if a Kirby game didn't have any of the Waddle Dees, it just wouldn't really feel like a Kirby game. Or, well, rather to be more specific, some of the platformer ones, not the other spin-offs or anything like that. Because I'm just kind of sitting here trying to imagine a Kirby level without seeing any kind of Waddle Dees in the background or just standing in your way. And I think it would feel pretty empty. What other enemy would you have to face off against? And would they be as charming as the Waddle Dees? Probably not.
Waddle Dees were introduced in Kirby's Dreamland, right alongside the lovable puffy hero and funny tyrant penguin. Dreamland was designed as a beginner's game, made for players of all skill levels to beat fairly quickly.
This was something that was pointed out to me in one of the YouTube comments. I didn't realize this at first, but Like, apparently Kirby platformer games, are the easiest to beat in the entire genre, essentially. Because you can literally just float over every single obstacle and then be done with it. If you really didn't want to engage with any of the enemies, you could just bypass them. But from the previous videos we watched, I also know that there are like extremely difficult difficulties that you can ramp it up to if you're up for the challenge and you're willing to go the extra mile to maybe get some extra lore. So essentially, Kirby allows for a very wide berth of a gamer's skill to be able to enjoy. Or I suppose a better word there would be like range, which I think definitely also enhances the message that Kirby wants to send, because embodying kindness is something everybody is capable of. Well, that, and also the more real world reason being that, you know, the more people that can play your game, the more you can sell it. And with it being more of a family game, then yeah, it just makes a whole lot of sense. But that then leads on to arguments that are usually made against why certain like difficult video games, like say Dark Souls or Elden Ring, don't have a difficulty option. My stance on stuff like that has always been, it's up to the intent of the developers. If a Dark Souls game was easy, I feel like it would take away from the message that Dark Souls is trying to send, as opposed to the Kirby games here, where instead of taking away from it, it enhances it and spreads its reach. If adding difficulty options actively harms the intention or the vision the developers have for their project, then I say do away with it. But if it doesn't, then yeah, totally. Give as many options as you can and make the experience as customizable as you want.
And as the first enemy in the easy mode of platformers, Waddle Dee is almost comically ineffective. To compare Waddle Dee to another enemy mocked for their weakness, if a Goomba touches Mario before he gets a power-up, he dies. If Mario jumps on a Goomba, the most common action Mario can take in his series, they die. Now to contrast, if a Waddle Dee touches Kirby, he does 1/6 of Kirby's maximum health. And then you
that was not a very effective attack. So like, what do? They just run up and like accidentally pinch him or something?
You blow up.
Or Kirby can just inhale him and swallow, beat him instantly. Or he can be spat out at his friend, who is moving just slowly enough that Kirby will have no problem reacting in time, even if he's being controlled by my great-great-grandmother. And she's dead.
Nope.
After this...
What? Not gonna lie, designing for his grandmother is probably a better gamer than I could ever be.
First impression, Waddle Dees rarely even chase after Kirby, often following their namesakes and waddling around or drifting down from the skies peacefully with a parasol. When Kirby unlocks Extra Mode, which buffs up all enemies and
it's like they just happen to be there and they're like a physical entity, so you accidentally bump into them. Do they even know what they're supposed to be doing? Or did they just get some like vague order from King Dedede?
Transforms them into wacky forms like Erratic Chicken, Death Skull, and Benny. Waddle Dees just kinda go a little faster and sometimes jump, but are otherwise the same dudes. In practice, Waddle Dees are the most pitiful foot soldiers out there in games, almost seeming like they're more just hanging out, living their best lives than trying to actually stop Kirby. Calling them enemies at all can really feel like a stretch. And that has ended up being the point of them. Nintendo Power would go on to describe Waddle Dees and their first cousin, Waddle Doos, as not too smart.
I don't mean to alarm you, but I think I might be stupid.
Any solo appearance of a Waddle Dee, like Kirby's Avalanche or Kirby's Superstar Stacker, sees the species rep as nervous and a generally incompetent enemy. Super Smash Bros. Melee states that Waddle Dees don't even see themselves as servants of King Dedede, too innocent and peaceful to have the most.
So wait, they don't see themselves as servants. Are they just like trying to be nice and help out the guy? Because they recognize that he takes care of them as well? Honestly, that's even more cute than just being like a devoted follower. They're just like, oh no, this Penguin needs help. But actually, no. I think much later on in the series, they do recognize King DDD as their king. But that's only after he's become a lot more respectable.
Motivation to beat up Kirby on their own. Waddle Dees are failures as enemies because they're barely supposed to be enemies. Only barely getting in Kirby's way because a penguin said, "Yo, food though?" And they realized for a sec, "Yo, food though?"
Yeah.
And through their charmingly...
It's just that one thought in their mind. Yeah, okay, that's what I gotta do. Regardless of the consequences. There is no thought after that one. It is incredibly charming, though. These type of characters in media, like, you can't help but love them. They're always doing their best with what little they've got. And in a way, it's kind of inspiring.
Pitiful nature, subversive to their own role, they come to represent what Kirby games are all about.
Yeah.
Kirby often isn't about particularly rigorous challenges. He can pretty casually float over conflict or find a way to avoid harm in almost any game he appears in. It's the way that Kirby...
Man, I wish I could have just floated away and avoided all harm during the first platformer game I ever played. Hollow Knight. I streamed that entire experience here on the channel, and I still get PTSD flashbacks to Path of Pain.
The person holding a gun to my head is myself. After all, I am my own worst enemy. As you can see here, displayed on screen, the path is simple. There is one very clear movement that I must do, and yet I cannot. I truly appreciate everybody who's still here just to watch me suffer.
He interacts with his environment, the experimentation he plays with using his various copy abilities, the personality and positivity expressed every time Kirbo does a thing that defines the feel of the Kirby series. Moments in Kirby stand out just by being cool or unique little experiences that punctuate his adventure with a sense of wonder, almost entirely separate from his gameplay or overarching plot. Waddle Dees, then, are the accentuation of that idea. Enemies too weak to be considered a threat, instead devoted to simply enhancing the experience. Seeing what Waddle Dees will do is exciting in any Kirby game. Whether it be the little guys tripping over themselves to give the most pitiful effort possible to defeat Kirby, hitching a ride on little boars, hiding in a big Waddle Dee puppet, deforesting the world with the cutest hats and the most adorable enthusiasm.
Okay, that's a little too many Waddle Dees. Or maybe some people would say that
natives are so utterly incompetent, and Kirby so far above them, that they actually can get players to slow down and appreciate the little moments. Setting up obstacles...
Slow down and appreciate the little moments. It's such a simple concept, and yet throughout the entirety of our lives, we need to constantly be reminded to do so. It's just because everything around us calls for optimization, or that the end goal itself is the entire point of your journey. When the reality is, you can't go through life like that. That's not really living. Being there in the present moment and enjoying it for what it is probably what Waddle Dees do their entire existence. And that is most certainly a quality that I think we can all embody a little bit more.
That would be really embarrassing to get hit by, they're so telegraphed, but so endearing to watch. Series director Shinya Kumizaki has even commented on their pitiful little function in a Miiverse post, noting that Waddle Dees incidentally get into Kirby's way, performing tasks that just so happen to inconvenience Kirby. And the development team loved the flavor so much, they looked for opportunities to add the little guys wherever possible. Like, look at them! They're playing their little video games in their hidey hole. Oh, now he disposed of the body. Oh,
definitely not malicious.
He learned to drive, but he courteous and obey traffic signal. What a good boy! Waddle Dees
were we the bad guy all along? New theory. Kirby is evil.
Are made to make your obstacles just a little less intimidating and a lot more charming. And even in those moments where they become competent for just a brief flash, capitalizing on their weakness to surprise the player with something legitimately threatening, you can be sure that their comical defeat is just around the corner.
No.
Now, Waddle Dees could take this win, being bad enemies but really fun and cute comedy characters that fit Kirby's theming, and they'd go down as pretty beloved characters in the same way that Mario's Boos or Dragon Quest's Slimes are. But they like to go one step beyond. And past their charming cartoon antics, Waddle Dees have developed into wonderful individuals whose hard work puts them above the rest of the pack.
Bandana D.
As early as Kirby Superstar, Waddle Dees have tended to be just a smidge more durable than their contemporaries, taken to its logical extreme in Kirby Superstar's finale, the arena. Here, facing down a gauntlet of every boss that Superstar has to offer, Kirby will have to face this regular Waddle Dee.
Oh my god. We're all going to die.
Death awaits you.
But one that is slightly more durable than this warship cannon, willing to stay in the ring through pure endurance. Unless Kirby just swallows him and beats him in one hit like any other regular enemy. However, this jokey determination gets flipped on its head in another of Superstar's modes, the Revenge of Meta Knight, where Waddle Dee gets to show off his most powerful ability, loyalty. Here, a sailor Waddle Dee is part of Meta Knight's crew. A bit out of place around the Train League of Knights and the airship captain on board. He's naive, seems occasionally concerned for Kirby's well-being when everyone else on the ship is trying to kill him, and accidentally reveals to the player how to beat the otherwise invincible halberd reactor.
Oh no.
But when push comes to shove, this little sailor respects Meta Knight like no other. After Kirby wrecks up Meta Knight's ship and sends it toward a permanent vacation in the Secret Sea, even after every single one of Meta Knight's other comrades evacuates, the shaky ship hand remains on, the only witness to his commander's duel with Kirby. It's
Hey, where have we seen this one before? They always stay there to witness the final stand of their leader. Yeah, these guys are so cute.
known if Sailor Waddle Dee survived the crash of the halberd. But let it be known that even though the captain was too chicken to go down with the ship, Waddle Dee remained.
What a legend. I'll always remember him.
This unwavering devotion to those who show Waddle Dee's kindness remains their most defining aspect. Kirby 64 features only one Waddle Dee, unfortunate enough to get possessed by a fragment of dark matter, and forced to fight Kirby as this weirdly high polygon Waddle Doo. Really, like what happened to his model in Brawl? Anyway, a fight against even a possessed Waddle Dee is about as pitiful and comical as you would expect.
Yeah, I don't know what Dark Matter was thinking there. Maybe they weren't thinking, but like, not the greatest body to possess if you want to fight Kirby.
Kirby able to beat the guy without any sort of issue. But this Waddle Dee hangs on, deciding not to let his exorcism go unpaid, and following Kirby as a loyal friend through the rest of his planet-hopping adventure. Dee accompanies Kirby through various levels, occasionally making sure that his friend has an escape route from dire situations, and more often providing makeshift vehicles to help Kirby through more tricky terrain. Sure, he usually ends up over his head, and most of his rides with Kirby end off with him tumbling into the abyss.
Oh.
But he is a Waddle Dee. It's hard to expect more from him than the very low bar that is his best. Even still, not only is the little man the breaking point that gets King Dedede to reluctantly join the rest of Kirby's crew as a true friend, he plunges right into the heart of darkness, Dark Star itself, with the rest of the gang to free the universe from Dark Matter's corrupting grasp. And at the end of it all, well, even a humble Waddle Dee can become a hero. He just needs the right friends to help him out.
Yeah, buddy.
But
honestly, the fact that he found like escape routes for Kirby, as well as made makeshift vehicles essentially, kind of suggests that they're a lot more competent than I thought they were. Or like what the description suggests that their level of intelligence is. That might mess up sometimes, but they also seem quite resourceful.
If you know Waddle Dees for anything recently, it's their bond with their chosen leader, King Dedede. While Waddle Dees didn't see the big penguin as much at first, as previously mentioned, Triple D has more than given them his fair share of attention. The Kirby anime sees the Waddle Dees as the king's faithful staff, serving his every whim without a care as long as he keeps them fed and housed, not even really minding if he sells them out as slave labor. As long as they—
The fuck? What the— King Dedede, how could you? But also, not gonna lie, that shot earlier was a little bit disturbing. He just held up a cookie to the Waddle Dee's mouth and it just got absorbed. They don't have an actual mouth, it's just— I guess it just directly gets teleported to their stomach or something. Oh god.
They get their meal at the end of the day? They couldn't even think of revolting.
Some scholars believe that Waddle Dees roam freely unless somebody gives them a meal and a place to sleep. Waddle Dees feel that it's their duty to stay and repay their host.
Kirby Mass Attack sees the Waddle Dees as not the easiest enemies to defeat for once, Beanbon pitifully taking up that role. So the meager minions get the chance to actually be fairly competent in a later level, Dedede Resort. Taking out one Kirby might be rough, but ambushing a gang of mini Kirbys with bombs and fruit to protect their king while he's on vacation? That they can handle.
Alright.
Kirby Superstar Ultra sees Dedede trying to take his ultimate revenge on Kirby, rallying all of his troops to try to clobber the pink puffball with all of his might. And though a king is no match for the boy who slays gods, Dedede acts nobly, his troops properly armed with spears for once, and the king himself trying to spare his closest Waddle Dee advisor from having to face Kirby's wrath. And this act forever endears Dedede to those who waddle with his namesake, willing to follow him in defeat, not as the guy who gives them food, but as their king.
Exactly.
Kirby and the
like, there's no way that you can just abandon these guys now. The Waddle Dees are all ride or die. The amount of loyalty and devotion they have towards somebody is also so just noble and pure. It's not even on like the level of obsession or fanaticism over something. They're just a bunch of good boys. Such an honorable trait that I don't think any human being can even possess to this extent. I guess Waddle Dees are just built different.
Forgotten Land cements this absolutely. King Dedede is brainwashed by the Beast Pack to capture as many of his subjects as possible to use as batteries for a nefarious purpose. Yet the
Waddle Dees, they even recognize that it's not King Dedede. Like, he's not acting as he usually does anymore. And I don't think any of them hold it against him at all. Because, like, after everything is said and done, they're still, like, helping him rest up and serving him fruit and stuff like that.
The moment he's freed from his mind control by Kirby, despite everything he's done, the Waddle Dees instantly forgive Dedede, rushing to his side as he gives them all friendly greetings. And when the hordes of the Beast Pack descend upon them, threatening to trample a Waddle Dee in their wake, Dedede runs back to save the little guy, hurling him to safety and taking his place.
My god, these little edits are killing me. They just come out of nowhere. But this moment was very character defining for King Dedede. It's incredibly impactful after having seen his entire journey and what it took for him to get here, to do this one simple act of saving one of his subjects.
A king sacrificing himself for his subject, ready to take on an army for the life of one clumsy little boy. After beating an army back, the Waddle Dees the king rescued personally nurse him back to health, loudly proclaiming their admiration for their king's strength decisiveness, and kindness. For the weakest of subjects changed the heart of a selfish king, and he completely and utterly won their hearts in turn.
Exactly.
Waddle
Once again, I'm pretty sure I said this earlier in the video, but while it was certainly Kirby who showed King Dedede kindness, and that was kind of like the spark to help him change, if he didn't have the Waddle Dees to take care of, I don't think those methods would have been as effective. Through thick and thin, the Waddle Dees were always with him, and I think that's a major part in what allowed him to become the person he is today.
Waddle Dees have come such a long way from their humble beginnings as adorable punchlines. But there is one that encapsulates their entire journey. One idol that every Waddle Dee aspires to be. Everything that Waddle Dees are wrapped into one singular character.
Here comes the boy.
Bandana Waddle Dee, or Bandy, first appeared as an opponent in the Megaton Punch minigame in Kirby Superstar. And he has this cute little waving animation, and he punched the planet in half, but overall, people didn't really think much of the guy. A cute little joke of a Waddle Dee literally punching above his weight class, and still not being enough to compare to Kirby.
Well,
however, in the years after Superstar's release, Waddle Dees started to be used more, played with more, had... You heard the rest of the video, you get the idea.
Yeah.
By the time Superstar was remade 12 years later, Bandana Waddle Dee wasn't just coming back for a throwaway role. He was ready to be the Waddle Dee.
Hey,
he replaces the Arena Waddle Dee with the big, meaty HP in, well, the arena, and appears as Dedede's right-hand waddler in the Revenge of the King mode. After Dedede permits him to flee with his life, instead of turning tail, Bandana Waddle Dee goes right out there to clobber that there Kirby. And is bodied pretty effortlessly.
Look, it's the thought that counts, alright? Honestly, it would be even more endearing if I keep calling him Bandana Dee. Bandy knew for a fact that he wouldn't be able to beat Kirby, which honestly I kind of think he did. But he had to go out there anyway. He had to do it for his king. Honestly, what a mad lad.
But when everyone else has been defeated and only the king and
background.
Kirby remain for their epic duel, Bandy is the only one in the stands, cheering his king on in the most desperate fight of his life, and there for Dedede when he inevitably loses. From this point on, Bandana Waddle Dee doesn't just want to serve King Dedede, he wants to improve himself in every way and stand with Dreamland's greats. Kirby's return to Dreamland sees the little man as a unique playable character, given equal footing with Kirby series mainstays King Dedede and Meta Knight as part of Kirby's adventuring party. And here, we see Waddle Dee's training fully pay off. Bandy being just as good with the debuting spear ability as Kirby is, and even outclassing the great Meta Knight in durability. And he can do this.
Helicopter?
It's called the Waddlecopter now. I love it. Kirby Triple Deluxe and Planet...
Wait. Exactly how fast do you have to be twirling a spear in order to start flying? Because do the Waddle Dees, do they even have the power to like inflate their body and then start floating like Kirby does and like what King Dedede learned? If not, then this Bandy must have gone through some serious training to be able to achieve all of this. I guess that's the sense of devotion for you. He had something that really motivated him to want to become better.
That Robobots see him following Kirby into the depths of enemy lairs, throwing him power-ups when the going gets tough, just as Meta Knight did ages ago. Star Allies sees him as the very first Dream Friend Kirby gains access to. The only one out of Kirby's main friend group and Wispy Woods who is not overtaken by the corrupting power of the Jamba Heart. Forgotten Land sees him as the first familiar face Kirby encounters in this strange new dimension he's tossed into, always willing to plunge into the fight as Kirby's player 2 and help the Puffball rescue all of his Waddle Dee brethren.
I see. Player 2.
But Bandana Dee's biggest and most shining role is in Kirby Battle Royale. Desperately wanting to win Dee's Cake Royale, a combat tournament hosted by the king to win a delicious cake, Bandana Waddle Dee asks to team up with Kirby for a chance to prove himself. And throughout all of his fights, Waddle Dee is very unsure of himself, always impressed by and complimentary of Kirby, but finding their success to be pure luck or coming as a surprise. But no matter what, he always gives it his all. Even beating Meta Knight when he thought there was no chance they could overcome the great Star Warrior.
I think that is a very important lesson to learn. And it really only comes with experience that when you see, like, say, an athlete playing in like a high intensity situation at like a worldwide competition or something like that, to an outsider, they look calm and collected. But I can tell you for a fact that as somebody who has stood on that stage before, I was shitting myself, man. Ultimately, you're still human and you're going to be feeling these emotions and all this self-doubt, especially when you know that the person that you're competing against is just way better than you and has way more prizes and has won more competitions and has a longer and storied past that you as a newcomer don't really have. It can be incredibly intimidating. And all these thoughts just start flowing into your head. But regardless of all of that, all you really need to do is keep things simple and just try your best. Much easier said than done. But really, it simply boils down to that. Bandy over here should be an inspiration to all of us to overcome adversity and not be afraid to experience it or be scared by it, but regardless of what it is, to face it head on and do our best.
Gaining MK's praise in the process.
You can put up a fight.
Even when he comes face to face with his majesty, Waddle Dee does not back down, believing in himself and Kirby to take on the very man he risked his life for in battles prior. And when Dee throws a tantrum and decides, well, Kirby can't win unless he beats this giant robot with a Kirby-making machine in its chest, Waddle Dee fights for what he believes in, giving Kirby the cannon he needs to defeat the Destroyer Z, and giving the king his just desserts.
Hey, I see what you did there.
And earning himself some in the process.
Nice.
It's a simple, cute little story, but it's everything that Bandana Waddle Dee has been working toward, and everything the Waddle Dees are all about. A character song was released for Bandy based on this game, the Apple Juice song, themed around his desire to drink apple juice so he can grow big and strong. Hey. And this desire comes from the need to support his friends, wanting to train together, spend time growing stronger, put in work even though it's hard, and eventually bring him to the point where losing to Kirby isn't an inevitability. Someday, if he trains hard enough, he can win.
Well, hey, even if that isn't true, all you really need is that belief. Like, very recently, I got into Guilty Gear Strive, which is the first fighting game I've ever played in my life. I had stayed away from fighting games for the entirety of my life because I have incredibly bad reaction time. It averages at around like 300, 400 milliseconds or something like that. And I had spent my life kind of just playing turn-based games. That was what interested me. But still, fighting games were not my thing. Real-time strategy games were also not my thing. So I was very nervous getting into it because I really enjoyed the lore behind the series, but I didn't know if I would ever be able to learn the skills or pick up anything to be at least competent in playing a fighting game. I didn't want the streams to be incredibly boring, just seeing me like flailing around and trying to beat a CPU that I could just never win against, you know? That's always a worry that I have whenever I start a stream, that I'm just going to fail over and over and it's just not going to be entertaining. But when I go into it, I can't really be thinking that, can I? You just got to like take a deep breath, clear your mind, and then slowly practice your way up there. Set small, achievable goals that have nothing to do with winning or losing a match, and have everything to do with improving your skills as a fighting game player. And once you achieve that, regardless of whether you won or lost, there is just this euphoric feeling that you've progressed. You're becoming better and better, little by little, until eventually you do win your first match. You start to understand that fighting games are like turn-based games, and you start to feel in control of this character that you've been trying to learn and master. Once you hit that moment, the joy of fighting games hits you like a truck. It's really just this intrinsic value that has nothing to do with winning or losing, and this pure joy of going at it against another player. Sometimes you mix them up, sometimes they mix you up, but regardless of what's going on and who's winning, it's just so fun. And to get there in the first place requires you to have faith in yourself, that someday you'll be able to do it just like everybody else. And it's okay if it's not immediate, but if you keep on training, you'll get there. Anyways, thank you for coming to my TED Talk about fighting games. Let's continue with this video about Kirby lore now, shall we?
Bandana Waddle Dee is an underdog. One always humble about his accomplishments. One that knows he and Waddle Dees as a whole are kinda wimpy, but he goes for it anyway. He's not much, but with a lot of effort and friends by his side, he can stack up with the finest warriors of his world and achieve something no Waddle Dee could even dream of. But this strength doesn't come at the cost of what Waddle Dees have been. Bandana Waddle Dee is still incredibly easygoing, unswayed, and unfazed by the darkness that might surround him. And as long as you're nice to him and are willing to work with him, Bandy will be absolutely loyal to you until the bitter end. Waddle Dees are as intrinsic to the Kirby experience as Kirby himself is. They're the only characters who have appeared in every single Kirby game outside of Maximum Pink. And through each and every one, these clumsy little dudes have added to Kirby's world just by being themselves. Kirby doesn't need terrifying enemies from beyond, or deep lore, or massive 30-year character arcs to be Kirby. They're nice additions that make specific games and moments feel incredibly special, but aren't at the core of the experience. What Kirby has always had is levity, character, little moments that make Dreamland and all the other worlds he explores fun and charming. Unrelenting positivity, no matter what. This is what Waddle Dees have tirelessly held up for all of the series over 3 decades.
I need to get me some of that positivity.
And vibe of Kirby. One that makes all the little moments you pass by in seconds all the more special. And beyond that, they've evolved to prop up story themes, the ties and bonds of friendship, of kindness, of honor that the Kirby cast represents, all supported by an army of little helpers to make them shine, and a few standout members who get to embody their group in turn. Waddle Dees are there to make sure you never feel alone. Something that's reflected right in our world too. If you visit the real-life Kirby Cafe by yourself, the staff will make sure to send a Waddle Dee over to eat with you, so you can always have a friend nearby and enjoy your time.
Oh, that's so cute! I didn't know this was the thing, but that's awesome. This is how society can learn to heal, that you're never truly alone. You always have a friend with you. Well, with how society is currently developing, I feel like this lesson, this truth, becomes even more needed than ever before.
The pure joy that these creatures give is hard to put into words, but it's so easy to understand once you've spent time with them, and they'll continue supporting you and Kirby as a whole, as long as they live to waddle on. Because these aren't just Goombas with hats or marketable little plushies. These are friends with a truly sweet, careful, and endless devotion.
Honestly, the most baffling thing here is the fact that Designing Force channel doesn't have over 100k subs. But I'm really glad I watched this video. It's always so surprising to take a look at a Kirby character and then see that something you had kind of dismissed as being just, you know, another villain, another protagonist, another minion, actually has so much more, well, character to them and have so many aspects that I find relatable. I think we all can to different extents, because ultimately these core principles that make up their character are often a simplified characteristic that we as humans want to develop. We want to and should embody these things because it just brings so much more positivity to the world, and like, we desperately need it, especially nowadays, and probably far into the future we'll always need these things. It's inherent within our own nature. And it's awesome that there's a series out there of video games that really hammer in these core principles, whether that be to teach a new generation or to help remind an older generation of better times when things weren't so complicated. Because sometimes shit happens and you just gotta stop and smell the flowers along the way and realize that it's all a part of the journey. But anyways, guys, that's probably enough of me rambling. I feel like this video, I talked way more than I usually do. Just something about it, you know. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.